Hello everyone, this is Unger to the Max here. A salute to you. Hadn't done that in a while, so I wanted to bring it back. It is a great, gorgeous day here on June 6th at 12:28 p.m. here in Moreland Hills, Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm your host, Unger to the Max. And today, in today's first of a couple videos I plan to do, we are not going to be doing a Unger to the Max vlog, although I guess you could consider this a vlog, but whatever. This is not an I've been thinking video. This is not the Sports Room. This is not a Cleveland Cavaliers vlog. It is not a Cleveland Monsters vlog. And it is not a Cleveland Browns thoughts video. No, I'm going back to one of my old series that I haven't made a video for in a while. That's right, this is Talkin UFC. And I will get to the UFC in 1 second. But let me start with the WWE. Just stay with me. Don't switch off the video, because I did say this is Talkin UFC, but I want to address something with WWE from Friday Night SmackDown last night. Just super quick. Okay. So Sasha Banks and Bayley are slowly going towards an implosion where Banks is eventually and hopefully going to turn face and turn against Bayley, who will remain a heel. And at SummerSlam, which was originally supposed to be in Boston, Massachusetts, at TD Garden, the home of the Boston Celtics and the Boston Bruins. Ugh, I need to wash out my mouth with soap after saying that team's name. Banks was supposed to take the SmackDown Women's Championship from Bayley and, like I said, become face, while Bayley stays a heel, and they start a whole feud. So, the main event of SmackDown last night was Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross defending the Women's Tag Team Championships against Bayley and Sasha Banks. Now, I thought WWE would be like, we have Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross in a feud on Monday Night Raw with Billie Kay, and I forget who the other girl is, but the Iconics. So we're going to keep the Tag Team Championships on Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss so they can keep that feud going. Nope, they didn't do that, because Sasha Banks hit the surprise roll-up, which for some reason WWE loves to do that, and I absolutely hate it. Do regular finishes, like allow Sasha Banks to use the bank statement, or allow Roman Reigns when he comes back to use the spear, or allow AJ Styles to use the Styles Clash. I don't know. Don't always use the freaking surprise roll-up. But anyway, so Sasha Banks used the surprise roll-up, and now your SmackDown, not your SmackDown, your Women's Tag Team Champions are SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley and Sasha Banks. I don't get it. So WWE, you're going to have to clear that one up for me. But now, let's get to what today's show is all about, Talking UFC. And there is a pay-per-view on tonight, UFC 250. And the main event is Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer for the UFC featherweight belt. Now, you may or may not know this, depending on if you are a UFC fan or not, but Amanda Nunes is holding both the Bantamweight Championship belt and the Featherweight Championship belt. Now, up to this point, Nunes has only defended the Bantamweight belt since defeating Miesha Tate at UFC 200. Nunes has defeated Ronda Rousey at UFC 207. Let's see. She has defeated Holly Holm, I believe that was at UFC 239. She defeated Raquel Pennington at UFC 224. She defeated Jermaine Durandamy at UFC 245. And I believe I'm missing another title defense in there for Nunes, but that's okay. But here's the thing. If Nunes can successfully defend / retain, whatever word you want to use, the featherweight belt, she will be the first person in the history of UFC. Again, let me repeat that. She will be the first person in the history of the UFC to successfully defend 2 belts in the UFC simultaneously. Now, Conor McGregor, he was the featherweight champion after he knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds at UFC 194. And then, of course, he would face Nate Diaz in a welterweight belt at UFC 196 because that was originally supposed to be him moving up to face RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos, for the lightweight belt. But then Dos Anjos got a foot injury, so that fight fell out, and Nate Diaz stepped up, and Nate Diaz choked out Conor McGregor. So then they had a rematch at UFC 202, which I thoroughly enjoyed. That was the second ever pay-per-view I purchased. My first one was actually UFC 200, because I hadn't bought any pay-per-views up to that point. I didn't really become a big UFC fan until I would say UFC 195, when Lawler and Carlos Condit had that epic welterweight title fight. But what really sealed it for me was when Stipe Miocic defeated Fabrizio Verdum in the main event of UFC 198 to win the UFC Heavyweight Championship, bringing the first title championship to the city of Cleveland in 2016, which was then followed by the Monsters, which was then followed by the Cavaliers, but not followed by the Indians because the Chicago Cubs came in and said, oh, we're down 3-1. Well, guess what? We're going to give Cleveland a taste of their own medicine. And the Cubs came back and won Game 7 in Cleveland to walk away with the World Series. Go Cubs, go. Yes, I know I just did Go Cubs, go, and I'm wearing a Mariners shirt. But that's because Ken Griffey Jr. is on the back of this, and he is my favorite player of all time. Anyway, back to the UFC. So, like I said, McGregor defeated Jose Aldo in the main event of UFC 194 to capture the UFC featherweight belt. And then at UFC 205, he defeated Eddie Alvarez to win the UFC lightweight belt. Only thing is, Conor McGregor never defended either one of those belts. So, he would go on to face Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. And yes, it was a great boxing match. I loved watching it. I would honestly love to see it again. But who knows? But anyway, McGregor never defended it. And then Daniel Cormier, well, he was the light heavyweight champion, and then he moved up to heavyweight to challenge champion Stipe Miocic at UFC 226. And unfortunately, Cormier got the knockout, but that was because of some eye pokes. And Cormier was able to land the big shot and knock out Miocic, and so DC won the heavyweight belt. But subsequently, he ended up vacating the light heavyweight belt, and he would go on to defend the heavyweight belt successfully against Derek Lewis at UFC 230, but then thankfully he lost to Stipe Miocic in the main event of UFC 241 at Honda Center in Anaheim, California. Now, Henry Cejudo, he defeated Demetrius Johnson in the co-main event of UFC 227 to capture the flyweight belt. And then, in the main event of UFC 238, he defeated Marlon Moraes at the United Center in Chicago, Illinois, to win the vacated UFC bantamweight belt. Now, the reason it was vacated is because TJ Dillashaw, who Cejudo had just fought in a flyweight championship match, had tested positive for some illegal substance, so Dillashaw's like, I'm going to vacate the belt. So, Henry Cejudo fought Marlon Moraes, and Cejudo would end up winning it. And then he would vacate the flyweight belt. And then he just made his first successful title defense against Dominic Cruz at UFC 249. But then Henry Cejudo decided to retire, and so he vacated the bantamweight belt. So it's going to be, from reports, it sounds like it's going to be Peter Yan against Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight belt. I'm fine with Peter Yan being in there, but not Jose Aldo. I mean, yeah, Jose Aldo is an all-time great, and he was fantastic at featherweight, but he lost to Marlon Moraes. Why does he get a title shot? I mean, come on. What? I mean, you have four bantamweights on this upcoming card for UFC 250. In the co-main event, you have former champion Cody Garbrandt going up against Rafael Assunção. And you also have, I think it's Cody Sandhagen against Aljamain Sterling. Now, if one of them, let's say Cody Sandhagen, has a fantastic performance, why shouldn't he get the title shot against Peter Yan for the vacant light bantamweight belt? But I always just look at the full pay-per-view card to decide if I want to buy the pay-per-view or not. Now, if I'm interested in the whole pay-per-view card, I might buy it. But yeah, that piece of history of if Nunes defeats Spencer, she would become the first person in the history of UFC to successfully defend 2 belts simultaneously. Yeah, that's interesting to me, but that main event doesn't quite do anything for me in terms of, woohoo, I want to watch this. No. So I'm going to pass on buying this pay-per-view. I haven't bought a pay-per-view actually since UFC 241 when Cormier fought Miocic in a rematch for the heavyweight belt. Cormier's been trying to poke the bear and be like, Stipe, all you gotta do is sign the contract and we can have a trilogy fight. And my guess is, regardless of whether Cormier wins that fight or not, which hopefully he does not, my guess is he will retire. But, there's no guarantees. So, we'll see. Am I going to follow the action tonight? Yes. But am I going to buy the pay-per-view? No. The main event just doesn't excite me enough. And, the whole card, yeah, Garbrandt against Assunção is an interesting fight. And yeah, Aljamain Sterling against Cody Sandhagen, that's an interesting fight. But I'm like, it's not worth it to buy it, to watch it for $65. Sorry, it's just not. Maybe if the main event for UFC 251 is like Volkanovski against Holloway 2, or if it's Cormier against Miocic against Cormier 3, I would be interested. But since UFC 250 is Nunes against Spencer, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say pass. So that's going to do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, punch that like button like a UFC fighter and punch that subscribe button. Until next time, this is Unger to the Max signing off with a salute to you. Enjoy UFC 250 tonight.